All right, Tyron Woodley, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, UFC welterweight championship fight. They fight to a majority draw. I don't want to lead with the scorecards. I know in less than 2 minutes that's where we're going to be. I thought Woodley, Kenny, as a plus 170 underdog, no less, really handled the challenge. And this is a serious challenge in Wonderboy Thompson. I thought he handled it well. Hard to look good against him. Nearly got him out of there in round 4. I think this was a big night for Tyron Woodley. It didn't end the way he wanted it to, but again, I was very impressed with the champion underdog.
You know, one of the most important things to victory is understanding yourself and understanding your enemy. And I thought Tyron Woodley did a good job of understanding both of those things. I think that he did a good job of being patient when he needed to be against Wonder Boy. He didn't chase needlessly, but when he did, he was able to land some big shots, particularly that right hand. I thought he should have maybe mixed things up a little bit more with his wrestling, but I thought he did do a good job of bringing Steven forward and trying to get him out to land that big right hand or land those takedowns. I thought he did a good job overall with that. I thought it was a smart performance, maybe not the most exciting approach, but to have that exciting approach would have had him knocked out. So I thought Tyron showed his true intelligence as a fighter.
So round 3 was a swing round, I think, for a lot of people on the scorecards. I think in terms of the way the rounds played out, other than the 10-8 situation that we're going to get to in a minute, the fight might have hinged for some people on round 3. I don't know what your scorecard was, Kenny. Me watching it live, I had it 48-46 for Tyron Woodley. And I know a lot of people disagree with that. I gave Tyron Woodley round 1. I gave him round 3, and I gave him a 10-8 in round 4. Now, round 3, went back and watched it today, have no problem with a 10-9 Wonderboy score, have no problem with a 10-10 score if you chose to go in that direction. But the way I saw it, it was a close round, and late Woodley kicks Wonderboy's leg and almost kicks his legs out from underneath him. This round was contested entirely in the stand-up, and that's why a lot of people, I think, lean towards Wonderboy. Much of the round, Joe Rogan was talking about strategically some of the pitfalls that Woodley was encountering and not going to his wrestling. How did you score it, and in particular, how did you see that middle round?
I only saw it once. I thought that Wonderboy won the third round. I thought he won it 10-9. The first round I had for Woodley. I had a 10-9. And the fourth round I had it a 10-8 for Woodley. The other rounds I had for Wonderboy. So I had it a draw. So Woodley, I thought they got it right. Woodley holds on to his belt. I didn't think that Wonderboy was able to really get going when he wanted to. He was never able to heat up because Woodley was kind of just avoiding him. It was smart. Anytime Wonderboy would try to get a combination off, there'd be an interruption of some sort, of him either getting an angle and not letting Wonderboy finish, or he'd return with a shot of his own, just kind of interrupt that combination. And he never really allowed Wonderboy to really get going like we're used to. And I think that threw Wonderboy off tremendously. I thought that was a very smart approach from Woodley.
Thompson certainly proved how tough he is and that he is one of the best mixed martial arts athletes in the world. In terms of the scorecard, so Glenn Trowbridge had it 48-47 for Woodley. All rounds on his card were 10-9, one way or the other. He gave Woodley rounds 1, 3, and 4. So, again, no real issue for me. I think it's a fine scorecard. Derek Cleary scored the way that most people watching at home did, I think, the way you did, 47-47 draw. Thompson getting rounds 2, 3, and 5, and a 10-8 for Woodley in round 4. And that brings us to Doug Crosby. Now, he also produced a scorecard of a 47-47 draw, but it's how he got there, Ken Flo, that's raising some eyebrows. Crosby gave Woodley a 10-8, but in round 1 and not round 4. Any defense of that scorecard at all?
I really don't see it. The only thing, I guess, in round 1 that he could have seen was the fact that Wonderboy didn't land much. I think maybe he landed one strike in that first round, whereas Woodley landed over 30 strikes, and it was from a half guard position at the end of the fight. But to me, I still think that's a 10-9. I don't know how you score that a 10-8 for Woodley. That kind of baffles me. And then the fact that he didn't do that in the fourth round, in a round where Thompson was almost finished 3 or 4 times. I mean, you talk about him getting dropped, him eating those right hands, and then almost getting finished with the guillotine not once but twice. it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Unfortunately for Woodley, he wasn't able to get all the way on the side of his hip. He went too flat to his shoulders. So yes, there was an amazing amount of resistance in what Wonder Boy was able to do, but there was a technical error in how Woodley was finishing that guillotine, or trying to finish that guillotine. When you have the arm in, you can't have both shoulders touching the mat, because you're just not going to have the angle to finish. But that's how Wonder Boy was able to survive. But either way, that's a 10-8 in my mind. I mean, that's a clear 10-8 in my mind, that fourth round. And the fact that Crosby didn't score it that way, but had a 10-8 in the first, it had me scratching my head.
Right. If he gave you a 10-8 in round 4, it would actually make a 10-8 in round 1 more defensible, right?
Yes.
But the fact that one went one way and the other didn't, is really inexcusable. And I think it's led some people to think about conspiracy theories. Of course, we'll have Ray Longo coming up shortly, but there's no love lost between those two guys. And Wonder Boy sort of by default being a Longo guy because of the relationship between him and Chris Weidman. Again, I don't think Doug Crosby's sitting there doing anything to that extent, right? But this is like really bad stuff, Kenny, and really there's no defense for it. Wasn't necessarily going to give him the platform today to come on here and try to defend it. I just don't see any defense for that scorecard, unless maybe you got up to take a leak in the middle of the round.
Yeah, I don't really see how he scored it like that. I think Doug is a very smart guy, but he has certainly had his fair share of controversial scorecards over the years. I think the first one that kind of put him on the map was the Frankie Edgar BJ Penn fight in Abu Dhabi, their first encounter. A lot of people didn't like the fact that he had Frankie winning, as much as he did in that card. Obviously, we saw that Frankie eventually was the better fighter. It was just a tough style for BJ. But, Doug does some interesting things, and I don't agree with this scorecard. And even if you have some kind of relationship with a fighter that might be linked to someone that you have a history with, I don't think you should even be in there judging a scorecard. Right. You know what I mean? You shouldn't even be in there. If you have an issue with a coach, with a fighter, you shouldn't be able to allow to judge. And I think that UFC officials or people in the commission should be aware of that and prevent those kind of things from happening.
And you and I have, had coffee with Doug Crosby. We know the man, nice guy, intelligent guy, whimsical guy, but again, a forgettable scorecard for him over the weekend. So I want to get to Yoel Romero, but Kenny, very quickly, for Tyron Woodley, he gave away the 5th round, and we've seen this in recent UFC welterweight championship history. I think Johnny Hendricks, maybe against George St. Pierre, did nothing in round 5, and it cost him the fight in one of those. Do you think this was a fatigue issue for Woodley, or maybe he was hoping he had done enough in rounds 1 through 4, or was there just not a lot there to do much of anything over the final 5 minutes?